Part 4. Global Copy, My Talent is Called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 31. Chengdu, Administrative Building of Relevant Departments. What? Fog was found on National Highway G673. Has it been going on for 3 hours? Why are you telling me such an important thing now? What do you do for food? The bearded man slapped the table, stood up and roared. The subordinates below wiped away their sweat and accepted the leader's violent output with a grimace, feeling helpless inside. We just found out too. The location is already remote, at the junction between two cities. The surveillance is weak and few people usually pass through. If the school of Rongcheng Middle School hadn't reported to us that a school bus was missing there, no one would have noticed it by now. How is the situation on site? We have sent people to conduct investigation. According to the reactions of adventurers on the scene, it is probably a copy of the fog of ordinary level or above. Then why are you still standing there? Arrange manpower for me to attack the enemy. The Special Operations Department sounded the alarm and everyone got busy. In the conference room, a burly man was holding the table and looking around. The team members on the seats had solemn expressions. This is the situation, do you understand? Clear. Get it and get ready to go. Because of the emergency, the meeting only took 5 minutes from the gathering of personnel to the end. Oh. Captain Li is still so resolute. The door to the conference room was suddenly pushed open, and a man wearing leather pants and a mohawk filed in with a team of people. The man looked half smiling, squinting at the people in the conference room. When he saw a female member of the Special Operations team, his eyes lit up. Hey! There's a new guy here. It's really rare. A man in a suit wiped his sweat and walked out of the door to the middle of the two parties with a smiling face. Team Li, this is the strategy team convened by the Adventure Guild. No need to talk nonsense, Captain Li is an old acquaintance of ours, don't you think so? Mozikian's nonchalant manner was in stark contrast to the serious expression on Captain Li's face. Is the information clear? Captain Li ignored Mozigan's provocation and asked him. Who wants to see such a lot of things? Mohawk licked his lips with excitement in his eyes. I just need to know that there is an initial copy of a difficult level waiting for me to conquer it, wouldn't it? The benefits gained from conquering the initial dungeon are undoubtedly much higher than those from ordinary dungeons. Just the first pass reward alone can make people make a lot of money. Zhao Kongziu, you are irresponsible to your team members, Captain Li frowned and said in a deep voice. Really strong people don't need to pay attention to these insignificant things. The Mohawk man sneered and spread his hands. All members of our team, Yu Hui, do we still need to waste time on this? Captain Li saw that his teammates behind him had expressions of approval, and was too lazy to say anything more. He just said lightly, then let's go. Captain Li, how about we compete? Seeing him acting like this, Zhao Kongziu felt agitated and said loudly, look at our two teams, who can capture this dungeon first? Captain Li paused as he stepped out of the conference room, without replying, and walked straight out, followed by his teammates. After walking through the long corridor, the new girl was still quite lively. Finally she couldn't bear it anymore and asked to the front, Brother Long, who is that person? His attitude is so arrogant. Especially the look in my eyes just now, they were so leering and disgusting. The man named Brother Long also frowned slightly. That is the deputy group of the New Moon Adventure Group. It has been at odds with our Special Operations Department for a long time. The girl had short hair and was dressed in combat attire. She looked young, beautiful, clean and lively. She pouted, then why doesn't Captain Li agree to compete with him? She waved her hand fiercely in front of her chest. Slap him hard in the face and make him arrogant. Brother Long looked at her helplessly. Don't let Captain Li hear this, otherwise you will be punished for copying the team rules 100 times. Is the purpose of our special team established to allow you to show off your brutality against others? The girl stuck out her tongue playfully, covered her mouth and stopped talking. In front of the steeple, Xiaoyan and Lu Zhaoqi looked at each other. After the previous wave of monsters were cleared, their journey was almost smooth, as if someone could move the monsters away so that they could come here. Empty city strategy? Or should I invite you into the urn? The howling wind blew into the eerie woods nearby, and the dead branches and trunks knocked against each other, making strange and terrifying sounds. Lu Zhaoqi shrank her neck and asked Xiaoyan hesitantly, "Sister Yan, have you heard any strange sounds?" "It seems, it's a bit, don't talk yet." Xiaoyan listened attentively. The sound gradually became clearer. "Xiao, teacher, you, wait, ah." The words were sob-like, and in this gloomy environment, it was chilling. Lu Zhaoqi shuddered. "Sister Yan, did you provoke something dirty?" Xiaoyan rolled her eyes at him, pointed in the direction she came from and said, "That's where the sound came from. Come on, let's go over and have a look." Walked 100 steps. The sound became clearer and clearer. Turning around a huge rock, the view suddenly broadened. Lu Zhaoqi saw a white figure wandering towards the side and trembled with fright, thinking she had seen a ghost. Xiaoyan couldn't help but slap him in the face when she saw his useless look. "Why are you shaking?" "That's Zhao Sueking." "Zhao Sueking. That's okay." Lu Zhaoqi let out a breath. Zhao Sueking also saw the two people in front and accelerated her pace. After a while, he came to Xiaoyan and Lu Zhaoqi, crying, "Teacher Xiao." Although Xiaoyan was confused as to why Zhao Sueking woke up suddenly and chased after her again, looking at her like this, she was full of motherly love. She quickly stepped forward and hugged Zhao Sueking to comfort her. "Okay, don't be afraid, we are here." Woo! Zhao Sueking was comforted, as if the grievances in her stomach had been vented and she could no longer hold back. Lu Zhaoqi had a strange look on her face, and she was very amused when she saw that classmate Zhao, who used to be cold and aloof, was actually crying in Xiaoyan's arms. Although Zhao Sueking is smart and independent, she is still just an adult girl after all. Naturally, he was a little scared of the monsters. The main reason is that she is alone, and the atmosphere of the surrounding environment is also in place. It feels like going to a haunted house alone. Even if you know it's fake, you still can't help but be scared. She walked along, everything was fine in the front, but the closer she got to the spire, the more eerie and terrifying the surrounding environment became, and Zhao Sueking became more and more frightened. The more scared she was, the more she wanted to join Xiaoyan as soon as possible, so she walked forward faster. They happened to bump into Lu Zhaoqi and they had an unimpeded journey and soon arrived in front of the spire. So she chased him all the way but never caught up. What was even more frightening was that halfway through, even the traces of the battle disappeared. Zhao Sueking has no idea where to chase. No matter whether he stopped or went back, Zhao Sueking panicked. "I was deeply afraid that if I turned around or stopped, I would encounter a terrifying evil spirit emerging from a dark corner." So she could only walk forward shivering, calling Xiaoyan's name in a low voice as she walked. "I hope she can hear my voice, stop and wait for me." Unknowingly, she started crying and became what Lu Zhaoqi had seen before. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 32. Soon, the armed helicopter landed near the fog. A group of people were waiting to join up with the adventurer who was in charge of investigating the scene. The investigative method of these adventurers is to use their unique abilities to lurk and escape. After entering the dungeon, they can quickly detect the situation and return with the escape props to bring back the information of the dungeon. Please note that this fog is not new, it should have been transferred from somewhere else. The adventurer who had investigated the situation warned, the strength of the dungeon has exceeded the normal level and reached the difficult level. The fog is not fixed. When no one enters the dungeon, it will spontaneously transfer and suddenly appear elsewhere. If it weren't for the difficulty level of the mist dungeon, I wouldn't have come. Zhao Kongxiu interrupted the adventurer impatiently, pointed at the mist and said, "The Crescent Regiment charges." After saying that, he transformed first, took out the equipment from the package column, put it on, and rushed out with a big knife. The Crescent members who followed were also fully armed and disappeared into the mist with Zhao Kongxiu. Because they have signed a team collaboration contract with each other, it is easy to enter the same copy space together. Although the copy spaces of the same copy are almost identical, they are independent of each other. Each team that enters the dungeon will enter a brand new dungeon space to conduct strategy alone, completely isolated from others. In addition to the fact that people who enter the dungeon at the same time will enter the same dungeon space, if you want to form a team to carry out the dungeon strategy, it is best to sign a team contract, so that as long as one person in the team enters the dungeon, other people nearby will also be pulled in at the same time into the copy. Otherwise, it is easy to go in together, but because it is a little late, the time will be staggered and run to another copy space. This is also the reason why Xiao Yan and the others did not stop where they were and wait for rescue. As long as you enter the dungeon, you can't count on others. Captain Li shook his head slightly, turned to the adventurer and said, "Thank you for your hard work. Please describe the situation inside to us in detail." It is said that the reason why the fog was discovered this time was because a car sent by Rongcheng Middle School to pick up teachers and students participating in the adventurer assessment lost contact here. There were 8 students, a teacher, and a driver inside. It's a pity that for such a difficult copy, they may be in danger. After Lu Zhaoqi and the other 2 simply organized themselves, they started to set off again. After Zhao Xueqing calmed down her emotions, she resumed her previous posture, and took out a lot of recovery potions from the parcel column and distributed them equally to Lu Zhaoqi and Xiao Yan. Lu Zhaoqi's eyes shone, and she suddenly forgot about Zhao Xueqing's previous embarrassment, and looked at Zhao Xueqing eagerly. All he needed to do was shout, "Rich woman, I'm hungry." Zhao Xueqing ignored him and leaned closely against Xiao Yan. In her opinion, only this strong man who is covered in armor and holds a heavy sword, who can kill monsters with a single blow, can give her a sense of security. The group of people came to the minaret and looked at the open entrance. Without any further hesitation, they walked in. After all, there is only one road. If you don't go in, how can you pass the customs? However, Lu Zhaoqi still used his intelligence and went in holding a big rock. Every 2 steps, he would stop everyone and throw stones out to see if there were any traps to ensure safety. Xiao Yan saw a black line. But I can't think of a better way than this. After all, she had teamed up with others to take adventures before, and had teammates who were responsible for investigation, so she didn't have to worry about these things at all. What people learn is investigative skills, and their talents are matched with their skills. Naturally, there are more professionals than this. In fact, the school also teaches some basic detection methods. It's a pity that firstly, I am not convinced by the current situation, and secondly, I don't have any special tools. This is the only way to use this stupid method. It's already the 9th floor. It's not the end yet. Lu Zhaoqi clambered up the steps holding the stone, shouting when he was tired. Because he was afraid that the weight of the stone would not be enough to trigger the trap, the stone Lu Zhaoqi held weighed at least 30 kilograms. I threw it all the way and didn't find a single trap. The first to 8th floors are all empty. Zhao Xueqing glanced at him with a bit of disgust. "Throw it away." "Don't throw it away," Lu Zhaoqi shook her head like a rattle and said plausibly, "You don't understand, this is a psychological game between me and the boss. It's betting on when I will throw the stone, and I'll bet on when it will set the trap." Zhao Xueqing So what can I say? Just keep hugging me. Stop gambling, it's over. Xiao Yan flicked Lu Zhaoqi's head and pointed at the end of the 9th floor hall. In that dark corner, a monster shrouded in black mist, wearing this cloak, looking like the god of death, was sitting on a bone-white throne. One look at that aura and it was obvious that it was the goal of their trip. The Lord Monster, the Lich King. Lu Zhaoqi. Boss had noticed their arrival a long time ago. At this moment, he slowly floated and made a chirping sound, as if he was telling something. Unfortunately, before he could finish his words, a stone came straight to his face. It's Lu Zhaoqi. His face was slapped so hard that he became so angry that he threw the stone at him. Unfortunately, it was blocked by the boss's shield from a distance and fell to the ground with a clatter. The Lich King seemed to know from this move that there was no need to negotiate. He shook his hand and a scepter appeared. The next moment, dense ray attacks like a violent storm came over. Back off, Xiao Yan raised the giant sword and protected both of them behind her with one hand. Burning flame slash. Xiao Yan waved her hands. A sword set off a raging flame, drowning all the incoming attacks, and rushed towards the boss. A fierce fight between the two soon started in the main hall. The Lich King was suspended high in the air, his hands slightly spread out, and the scepter automatically floated in front of him. Countless rays and orbs emerged from behind and shot towards Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan held a giant sword in both hands, blocking left and right, trying hard to get close to the Lich King. Occasionally, an attack would be blocked by the Lich King's ultra-thick shield and bounced away. It seemed that Xiao Yan had fallen into a disadvantage and was completely crushed by the Lich King. Frost Storm. Zhao Xueqing was a little confused. Why didn't teacher Xiao show his amazing strength before and just kill the Lich King in a few seconds? But she didn't hesitate. She took out her staff, which was taller than a human, and unleashed her continuous attack skills. She has cultivated this serrated skill to 6 stars. As long as she does not interrupt, she can continue to cause frost attacks to the enemy. At the same time, the frost effect is caused to the enemy, slowing down the enemy's movement and interrupting the enemy's charged attack. Give her time to stand and output. Not only will the damage be terrible, but it will also have a soft control effect. Although Zhao Xueqing's attack was blocked by the shield, the control effect took effect successfully. For a time, the Lich King's offensive slowed down greatly, and the rays and orbs it released became sporadic. Xiao Yan got a chance to breathe, and used her sword to deflect the incoming attack, then turned around and shouted at Lu Zhaoqi. Draw out the sword. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy. My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 33. Draw out the sword. Xiao Yan shouted. Zhao Xueqing was also a little confused. Draw a sword? Who did teacher Xiao ask to draw the sword? Lu Zhaoqi. She looked sideways and saw Lu Zhaoqi, who was already prepared, placing her hand on the hilt of the wooden sword. The familiar fluorescent light slowly lights up. At this time, Lich King Sauron burst into laughter. Through the eye of hell, it has clearly seen the moves of the two men. The purpose of sending so many subordinates is to find out everyone's trump card. Although the human who appeared later was not what he expected, but based on her cowardly performance, it was obvious that he did not take him seriously. Naturally, it has already considered this kind of attack that can threaten itself. Seeing Lu Zhaoqi's signature move, he stretched out his finger and tapped Lu Zhaoqi lightly. A black energy instantly hit Lu Zhaoqi, who had no time to dodge. Lu Zhaoqi, Xiao Yan's eyes were about to burst, but she was trapped by a spell and couldn't move. Lu Zhaoqi was stunned for a moment, patted her chest, and checked her body up and down. No problem at all. What's the situation? Is this Lich King still pretending? Creak. A strange sound started. Lu Zioqi looked down and quickly took off the wooden sword from his waist and threw it out. Before it fell, the wooden sword turned into a ball of ashes and scattered on the ground. Even the Lich King himself didn't expect this effect. Although his curse spell can prohibit the use of the target's props, it is not so powerful as to destroy the equipment. But this is better. This person's threat to him obviously stems from that weapon. His own strength is weaker than that of the guy in white clothes who cried along the way. Without weapons, this human being obviously has no power to resist. It's over. Xiao Yan's head buzzed, and Lu Zioqi was knocked back to her original shape without the support of the sword energy. Now you can only rely on yourself. She shouted loudly, broke free from the restraints, and rushed over with her giant sword raised. Collapse the mountain and split the ground. Xiao Yan jumped up high, relying on the special effects of the domineering body to defeat the Lich King's few skills. The giant sword with lightning lingering, enchanted with thunder attribute damage, forcefully passed through the Lich King's spells with infinite power. The blockade hit its thick barrier. Boom! The Lich King's spell shield was hit hard, and the light began to flicker, with ripples like ripples appearing on the surface. Boom! Sauron launched a magic burst, and a powerful shockwave flew away Xiao Yan who had just approached it. Xiao Yan flew more than 10 meters away, suddenly turned around in the air to release her strength, bent her right leg and knelt on the ground with her left leg, and landed next to Lu Zioqi and Zhao Sueking. She wiped the blood sacrifice from the corner of her mouth and was about to call Lu Zioqi to leave this dangerous place when she heard him ask Zhao Sueking. "Classmate Zhao, do you have any extra weapons? The kind with a sheath? It would be best if it were a sword." Arms. Sheathed. Sword. At this time, Lu Zioqi is still pursuing the type and configuration of equipment. Zhao Sueking was a little confused, but she still answered truthfully, "No, I don't use a sword." Lu Zioqi patted her thigh and felt sad. Such a great opportunity. I wanted to rub Bai Fume's thigh, but I didn't touch it. Then I can only. Xiao Yan next to her was shocked when she heard this. Could it be? She gritted her teeth and made a decisive decision, choosing to believe Lu Zioqi. Then Xiao Yan interrupted Lu Zioqi's thoughts with a soft shout. Lu Zioqi looked up and saw a sheathed dagger thrown towards her. Recitative of the Loner Dagger. Basic physical damage increased by 869. Skill attack distance increased by 20%. The following effects are triggered when combined with Dreamer's Aria. Duo, there is a 10% chance of recreating the skill without consumption when releasing the skill. Aria of the Dreamer, Scabbard. Basic defense increased by 354. When blocking, reduce damage by 10%. The following effects are triggered when combined with Recitative of the Loner. March, the longer the battle lasts, the higher the own attributes will be improved, up to 10%. His Lu Zioqi looked at Xiao Yan with shock in her eyes. Set of equipment. This property. It was a blast. Unexpectedly, I just couldn't touch Bai Fume's thigh, but I ended up hugging the rich sister's slender waist with my backhand. Lu Zioqi looked at Xiao Yan infatuatedly. At this moment, this head teacher was full of charm in his eyes. Look. Sister Yan's posture as she rushes towards the boss is so graceful. Oh. She's taking action. She split. She flew back. Huh. Wrong. Lu Zioqi was angry, his eyebrows raised, and his eyes looking at the Lich King were filled with murderous intent. The dagger that had just been obtained began to charge, and the shining white light lit up again. At this moment, Zhao Sueking was also a little confused. This was different from the script she imagined. Obviously it was Xiao Yan, the boss, who led them all the way to kill the monster, and killed the Lord Monster in 3 strokes, 5 divided by 2. How did it become like this? She looked at Xiao Yan a little confused. Teacher Xiao, where is your average A? Quickly level A, don't use skills. If you use skills again, you will be killed by the boss. After Lich King Sauron eliminated the only prop that could pose a threat to him, he felt relieved and started playing with Xiao Yan, who was about to pounce on him, with a strange smile. This is the first time since it gained intelligence that it was so happy. After all, there's really no point in being with a bunch of sane guys. It also has a language barrier, otherwise it would really like to communicate with this human being. It would be best to persuade her to surrender and become his subordinate. Just when it was feeling happy, suddenly an alarm bell sounded in its heart. Just as he regained consciousness, an overwhelming sword energy hit its shield. The purple-black translucent barrier was like a poorly connected light bulb, which began to flicker crazily. Sauron was so frightened that he quickly increased his magic output and maintained the magic shield. Oh, Lu Zioki was in a moment of high spirits after getting new equipment, but the first fully charged sword energy was blocked by the monster. This made him a little embarrassed, and he snorted coldly. Thunder attack, open. Boom. A thunderbolt appeared out of thin air and hit Lu Zioki. He seemed to be a transformed Xian, with blue lightning all over his body, his hair standing on end, his eyes shining, and he held the dagger again. There's nothing that I, Lu Zioki, can't solve with one sword drawing technique. If so, then do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, remember. Zhao Xueqing's neck stiffened. Lu Zioki was standing beside her. So after the first sword energy was slashed out, her mouth never closed again. My mind went blank, and even the frost storm that was continuously outputting in my hand stopped. She knew she was wrong. All guessed wrong. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 34. MD, Zhao Kongzio chopped down a skeleton warrior with a sword and spat out a curse. The endless sea of skeletons seemed to drown them. Ever since they landed on the island, those mindless monsters have been flocking to them like crazy. Even escaping is a luxury. It was as if someone had angered the monsters. As soon as they stepped into the monsters' hatred range, all the monsters attacked at once. Is this the horror of the initial copy? Tuanzhao. My spirit can't hold on anymore, the team member turned pale and complained to Zhao Kongziu. Even after taking a quick recovery potion worth thousands of gold, his spirit still hasn't recovered. After all the damage was hit on the shield he supported. Lao Wu, don't skimp on your skills. Let's clear the wave first and let the brothers take a breath. Zhao Kongziu looked sharply and shouted. Okay, the man known as Lao Wu responded cheerfully, and the two began to gather energy. Thunder Half Moon Slash. Tiger Roars and Dragon Chance Wave. 2 B-rated AoE skills instantly wiped out most of the surrounding mobs. The other team members breathed a sigh of relief and quickly poured the recovery potion into their mouths. They also took the time to kill the sporadic mobs. Tuanzhao, I didn't expect this dungeon to be so difficult. I wonder what's going on with the special operations team. Them. We're all working so hard, how can they be any better? Maybe they even retreated to the entrance to rest. Zhao Kongzio snorted, looked at the spire in the distance that was getting clearer and clearer, and swung the knife. The first pass must be mine. On the other side, Captain Li, who was also surrounded by a sea of skeletons, was in a better situation than the members of the New Moon Adventure Group. They gathered together, divided into 3 rows, and formed a formation. The people in the 2 outer rows took turns stepping forward to attack or defend. The person in the middle is responsible for filling in the gaps and checking for omissions. Such a steady little push forward. Captain Li held his spear and looked forward with deep eyes, passed through the surroundings of monsters, and landed on the spire. This is not the first time he has conquered the initial copy. Naturally, he knows many unknown secrets. Once the dungeon reaches the difficulty level, the difficulty of the guide will increase exponentially. Because monsters are starting to have intelligence. Not only that, but for adventurers, each copy space is independent, but for monsters, it is not. Their memories are shared. They will pass the memory they possess to monsters in other copy spaces. For example, what skills are used by people who enter the dungeon for the first time, and what attack methods they use. All monsters in the dungeon space that will be opened later will be known. This leads to the fact that once the attack fails, it will become increasingly difficult to carry out subsequent attacks. These monsters were so violent that they were obviously stimulated by the adventurers in front of them. I don't know what those guys named Zhao did. Lu Zhaoqi, who fired 3 consecutive charges of sword drawing technique, seemed to be drained. He quickly took out a bottle of recovery potion specially provided by Zhao Sueking and drank it. The physical strength immediately increased sharply, and 50 points of physical strength were restored every second. It is 25 times more effective than the cooling Luo Jingguo in his bag. The only pity is that the duration is only 10 seconds. 3 huge sword energies crossed and struck at the Lich King Sauron. How dare it resist? After all, that sword energy just now almost caused his mana shield to shut down. Although the space on the 9th floor of the minaret is not small, it is still completely sealed by the sword energy that is more than 20 meters long. Sauron had nowhere to hide and could only resort to his unique tactics. It shouted a spell, and where no one could see it, at the top of the spire, the burning eye of hell suddenly opened its pupils, turned to the bottom, and shot a dark beam of light towards Sauron. Lich King Sauron was shrouded in this dark pillar of light, as if he was invincible. His sword energy shot over and was directly deflected by the pillar of light. Amidst a rumbling sound, a corner of the spire was blown down by the sword energy. Xiao Yan came to Lu Zhaoqi with a solemn expression. At this moment, her armor was damaged and she was a little embarrassed. She didn't even have time to ask what was going on with Lu Zhaoqi's sword energy, and just pulled the 2 of them back. Be careful. This Lord Monster has turned on the violent mode. When violent, the boss's skills and attributes will be greatly enhanced, but after a period of time, the boss will fall into a weak state. Generally speaking, the boss will become violent only when its health is endangered. But this time is different. Sauron has no choice. If it doesn't open, he will be killed. Then what are you waiting for? Just run. Lu Zhaoqi blinked, put away his weapon and ran away. Zhao Sueking was stunned for a while, and then she was led by Xiao Yan and rushed under the tower. When the Lich King Sauron completed his transformation, only him was left in the huge palace. Sauron? What about the 300 rounds of the promised battle? Don't run away. At this moment, it no longer looks like it is shrouded in black mist. The Lich's soul-like body that was originally hidden under the cloak has disappeared. It absorbed the power of hell and recondensed its entity, becoming a powerful demon that can run horses with its arms and stand on people with its fists. If it were to go head-to-head, it dared to say that its dozen or so abdominal muscles alone could crush Lu Zhaoqi and the others to death. Unfortunately, Xiao Yan sensed its change and shouted violently. Lu Zhaoqi ran faster than a rabbit. He was not given a chance to perform at all. After reacting, Sauron roared angrily and chased after Lu Zhaoqi and his party. After chasing him to the foot of the tower, Sauron was a little hesitant. Leaving the spire, it loses the protection of the spire, and the help of endless magic and the eyes of hell. By then, even the current demon body will become sourceless water. And there was always a dark voice urging it not to leave the steeple. It had always listened to that voice before. But now let Lu Zhaoqi and the others go? Obviously, it can't be done. If someone bursts into your home for no reason, beat you and run away. Are you angry? Just cry out of anger. You can fight him with a kitchen knife. That's what Sauron is thinking now. So it rushed out bravely. Then, it played GG. Outside the tower, what greeted it was Luzioki's fully charged sword drawing technique. Thunder attack plus charge max sword drawing technique. I was even more lucky to trigger the combination special effect of the dagger suit, double. As a result, two huge 40-meter long sword energy formed an X, pressing Sauron against the tower wall and rubbing it fiercely. It's not over yet. The dagger in Luzioki's hand, holding a special recovery potion in her mouth, quickly lit up again. 2 lanes, 3 lanes, 4 lanes. Zhao Kongziu, who was still fighting fiercely in another copy space, suddenly froze and raised his head. Including his teammates, they all sensed the changes in the copy. For a long time, he continued to kill monsters while cursing. Damn, they actually let them take the lead. They succeeded. Team Lee also frowned. Unexpectedly, after half a month of absence, this guy's strength has improved so quickly. The new girl pouted, how annoying. I let those guys get the first pass. As he said that, he struck a little harder and blasted the lich flying in the sky into white light. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 35. For the first time, whether it is for copies, people, or other things, it is very important. The dungeon that is cleared for the first time will lose room for growth. All the fog will return to its original form and will no longer move, becoming a tool to help adventurers grow. The reserves who clear the dungeon for the first time will be baptized by the power of the dungeon, break through the limits of ordinary human abilities, and officially become star-level adventurers. The first time is a sign of bidding farewell to youth and moving toward maturity. Luzioki, who had swung the last sword energy, stood in front of the spire, somewhat out of breath. At this moment, except for the teachers and students who broke into the dungeon, the other monsters that have not yet been killed, the environment and things in the dungeon are all fixed by invisible forces, like specimens in amber. Xiao Yan walked up to the deep pit in the wall of the minaret and looked at the huge hole made by Luzioki with a confused look on her face. Huh? Not a single dropped item. Killing the Lord and not getting any drops? This is the first time I've seen this happen. Luzioki, are you too unlucky or is your sword energy destructive? Can even dropped objects be destroyed? Lich King Sauron didn't even have time to say his last words before he was turned into ashes by the constant baptism of sword energy. At this moment, the place where it was before it passed away was empty, as if nothing was left behind. Luzioki's heart skipped a beat, she touched her head and smiled awkwardly, I don't know, maybe I'm just too unlucky. After all, you can drop into the dungeon just by taking a car. Zhao Sweking. Xiao Yan. Who are you making this insinuation about? Of course it's not a matter of Luzioki's luck. He knew clearly in his mind that his natural ability came into play after he came to the dungeon. Wherever you look, dropped objects are automatically picked up. Without looking, he knew that piles of materials, props, and equipment were all contained in his package. But asking him to just pull it out? Is this appropriate? Obviously inappropriate. One is a rich woman, the other is a UXZ-level powerhouse. Will they argue with me, a newbie who has just passed the adventurer certification exam? Obviously not. So it's a wise choice to pass the test with cuteness. Their activity space has been limited to a small space by an invisible force, and things outside the space have become the background. The heads of a group of people appeared directly above the background board. Checkout and evaluation have begun. Ratings are calculated from lowest to highest. The first thing to be counted is the students who have made no contribution and are left behind on the bus. Luzioki expressed her relief when looking at their sleeping faces displayed on their avatars. Li Bin, number of kills, 0, contribution, 0, operation coefficient, 0. Overall rating, E. Wang Liang, number of kills, 0, contribution, 0, operation coefficient, 0. Overall rating, E. Zhao Peng, kill count 0, contribution 0, operation coefficient, 0. Overall rating, E. Then there is the rich woman. Zhao Shueqing, kill count 0, contribution 9, operation coefficient, 5. Overall rating, D. Although the rich woman did not kill any monsters, she made an indelible contribution by providing a large number of recovery potions to the team. She also provided a certain amount of soft control in the final boss battle, sharing the pressure on her teammates, and gained copy evaluation is positive. I reluctantly gave it a D rating that was slightly better than the lowest E rating. Then there is the head teacher. Xiao Yan, number of kills, 531, contribution, 21, operation coefficient, 80. Overall rating, B. There is no doubt about Sister Yan's dedication. When Lu Zhaoqi was still developing silently, Sister Yan shouldered the important task of researching the dungeon alone. Although she was unable to turn the tide due to her limited strength, she always risked her life in C. The B rating is well deserved. Naturally, the last person in line was Lu Zhaoqi and Ben Qi, who had killed the Lord and cleared the dungeon. Lu Zhaoqi, number of kills, 8,927, contribution, 70, operation coefficient, 15. Overall rating, S. His. Because Xiao Yan had been charging forward to kill the enemy, she did not see Lu Zhaoqi hiding behind, but through this terrible data, she could probably guess what the kid in front of her was doing, rubbing his head and smiling innocently in front of her. What? Operation coefficient, 15. What is this concept? The lower the operating coefficient, the higher the element of phishing. Generally speaking, if it's below 10, it's just a casual win, if it's below 50, it's just a random guy, only if it's above 60, it's considered a serious effort. Xiao Yan's operation coefficient of 80 can be regarded as really trying her best. Those who can perform better than this are probably due to the explosion of the small universe and the operation is full. If someone can clear the level 100 times and achieve an operation coefficient of more than 80 once, then he is at the level of a master. But Lu Zhaoqi just raised the rating to S for this operating coefficient of 15. This shows how strong his hard strength is. Directly pushing horizontally without relying on operations. If this were not a living reality, Xiao Yan would have suspected that this kid was playing games and opening things. But this is not over yet. The settlement interface paused, and a new line of information representing bonus items appeared. Leap level challenge: the overall strength of your team is far lower than the difficulty level of the dungeon, and the evaluation of all team members will increase by 1 level. The next moment, the E evaluations of the comatose classmates turned into D, and Zhao Shueqing's D turned into C. Xiao Yan B rightward arrow A, Lu Zhaoqi S rightward arrow S+. Xiao Yan's eyes widened. This was the first time she saw a rating above S. Or maybe I've never heard of it. Not only that, the information on the settlement panel is still scrolling. Achievement: first pass of the dungeon. This dungeon is cleared for the first time, and the evaluation of all team members has increased by 1 level. Xiao Yan? Comatose classmate, D rightward arrow C, Zhao Shueqing, C rightward arrow B, Xiao Yan A rightward arrow S, Lu Zhaoqi S plus rightward arrow SS. Complicated feelings. Xiao Yan was a little confused. Has she achieved her first S-level evaluation in her life? Or was it actually achieved under such circumstances? Not to mention Xiao Yan, even Zhao Shueqing and Lu Zhaoqi, who had little experience for the first time, could tell that there was something wrong with the way their ratings were soaring. It's not like the picture you can see if you clear the level normally. However, that should be the end of it. Xiao Yan breathed a sigh of relief. Today, her understanding of the world has been broken many times, and her worldview has collapsed a bit. However, God is not going to let her go so easily. Because on the settlement panel, other people's evaluations were frozen, but Luzioki's evaluations were still scrolling. The shining golden characters appeared line by line. Achievement, explosive damage. You've done more damage to monsters than they can handle. Achievement, critical hit. You dealt beheading damage to the Lord. Achievement, Lord of Destruction. You have caused more than 10% terrain changes to the dungeon map. Achievement, caught off guard. Unprepared, the Lord was forced into a violent posture by you. Luzioki, SS rightward arrow SSS+. Finally, Luzioki's evaluation was also fixed in the shining golden characters. Evaluation is over. Xiaoyan and Zhao Sueking were shocked to the point of numbness. The settlement panel turned into streaks of golden light and shot into everyone's body. Xiaoyan didn't react much to this, but Zhao Sueking and Luzioki in front of her had their eyes closed and were floating in mid-air. This came as no surprise to her, she knew. Copy baptism has begun. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 36. First Pass Baptism, also known as duplicate baptism. It refers to the process in which the reserves accept the power of the dungeon after clearing it for the first time, break through human limits, and achieve extraordinary things. Yes, and only once. After a lot of testing, it was discovered that there are rules for the first baptism. The higher the evaluation of the first pass, the greater the increase obtained during baptism, the stronger the player's own strength, the greater the improvement. For example, the limit attribute of a person is 100. A cultivates his attributes to 80 and performs copy baptism, and his evaluation is D. Then after baptism, his strength can be increased to 96, a 20% increase. Of course, he can continue to improve himself beyond the previous limit of 100 through practice, reaching 120 or even higher. In addition, there is no direct correlation between the difficulty of the first dungeon and baptism. However, as a novice adventurer, if you can clear a dungeon above ordinary, your evaluation will not be too low anyway. After repeated explorations, people have deduced the degree of attribute increase that different evaluations have on the improvement of baptism. E. 10%, D. 20%, C. 40%, B. 60%, A. 80%, S. 100%. As for S and above? Sorry, Xiaoyan hasn't heard of it. Although you can break through the extraordinary critical point just by passing the baptism, you can improve your attributes through your own efforts in the future. The better your attributes are before passing the level, the higher the level evaluation, you will naturally gain the upper hand and be a lot ahead of others. It's like B raised his attributes to 100 and was evaluated as S. Then after the baptism, his attributes are more than twice as high as A's. Whether you are practicing or downloading dungeons in the future, your strength will speak for itself. As the saying goes, if one step is fast, then every step is fast. The gap brought by doubling the lead is basically a huge gap, which is difficult to compare with. However, high evaluation is not so easy to achieve. Those who can get a first pass of B or above are elites that the major forces have spent countless efforts to cultivate. At the beginning, Xiaoyan boasted that she had amazing talent and a golden legendary talent, but she could only reach a B rating. Her status as a civilian still limits her performance. Even so, her subsequent career as an adventurer was almost smooth sailing. If her brother's death hadn't been a huge blow to her, she might have become a leader of an adventure group by now. But now, Xiaoyan looked at Zhao Sueking with twitching in the corners of her eyes. There is no harm without contrast. Her B rating came too easily. The whole process was soy sauce, and then she got the same evaluation as her first pass. You know, when they went to kill the dungeon, several people prepared for more than half a month, and they worked hard to get a B rating. When Zhao Xueqing arrived, she was unprepared. The dungeon came out of the blue, and the damage output throughout the entire process was almost negligible. As a result, she also received a B rating. Speaking of which, those lying down in the car were more comfortable. I didn't do anything, just slept, and the dungeon baptism was completed, and I got a C-rated dungeon reward for free. But now she is even more curious, how much can the SSS and level baptism improve Lu Xiaoqi's strength? Although his previous physical fitness test at school could only be considered to be at the upper level. But I can't bear this wave of high reviews from him. It directly expanded Xiaoyan's horizons by 5 levels. S-level baptism can increase your original attributes by 100%. SSS and level. It's really hard to imagine. What needs to be explained here is the attributes promoted by baptism are comprehensive. Because there is no attribute panel for adventurers, it may not be easy to understand. Here is an example. If the strength of an adventurer is divided into 6 aspects: strength, agility, intelligence, endurance, perception, will. These 6 aspects combined determine the adventurer's combat effectiveness. Then after passing the S-level baptism, all your attributes will be doubled on the original basis. So, in fact, your strength is improved far beyond 100%. Even the lowest level of E rating is enough to greatly enhance your true combat power, making it feel like a completely different person than before. Zhao Xueqing opened her eyes first and slowly fell to the ground. After being baptized by the copy, although there was no change in her appearance, her big, bright eyes became brighter and more charming. Normal baptism will not cause one's power to be uncontrolled, because its improvement is all-round. When the power is improved, the control ability also increases, so there will be no so-called pitfalls accidentally stepped on. Or take a step forward and fly out directly, such a nonsensical scene. The message in her head didn't end there, reminding her that she could choose one of the following rewards as an additional reward for her completion rating. After clearing the dungeon, the rewards for each evaluation are completely different. Evaluations of C level and below basically obtain some copy materials randomly. When you reach B rating and above, in addition to materials, you can also choose to get one from the skill treasure chest, equipment treasure chest, and resource treasure chest. It's just that the B level ones are black iron treasure chests, the A level ones are silver treasure chests, and the S level ones are gold treasure chests. Xiaoyan has never seen S level or above, so she naturally doesn't know about it, but Zhao Xueqing has heard people talk about it. Above gold, there are 2 types of treasure chests, platinum and diamond. Only these 2 kinds of treasure chests can yield props of legendary level or above. Of course, she had only heard of SS level reviews at the highest level, and levels above that. Not only her, but probably few people in the world have seen it. Skill or equipment treasure chests, as the name suggests, are treasure chests that contain skills or equipment of corresponding levels, while resource treasure chests contain things such as training resources, consumables, and props with special functions. Zhao Xueqing had nothing to worry about. She didn't pay attention to the treasure chests at this level. She casually clicked on a skill treasure chest and stuffed it into the parcel column without even looking at what was opened. Xiaoyan had a gloomy look on her face and was holding a shield of rare quality in her hand. This is what she opened from the golden chest. From the look on her face, you can tell that her attributes are probably not very good. Although the equipment ratings are divided into ordinary, sophisticated, and rare. Although divided in this way, it is obvious that there are still differences between props of the same level. One is the deviation in basic attributes. For the same equipment, someone else's damage may be 100 or 10 points higher than yours. Second, there will also be requirements for users. Obviously, as a reserve, he would not be able to lift the giant sword in Xiao Yan's hand to fight. Therefore, even if the equipment of the same level is suitable for different people, it will be different. It is not difficult to see from Xiao Yan's fighting style that her fighting style is biased toward frenzied fighting. Let's not talk about whether the shield's properties are good or not. Even if the properties are not bad, it's still not in her hands. Just when she was thinking about exchanging this thing for someone who could take advantage of it, a golden light almost blinded her eyes. It turned out that Lu Xiaoqi, who had just woken up, rubbed her hands and opened her own treasure chest. Golden Legend. This ray of light, not only Xiao Yan, but also Zhao Xueqing, who was trying hard to maintain her iceberg temperament, was a little stunned. Although platinum and diamond level treasure chests have a chance of unlocking legendary and above items. But that's only a chance. I didn't let you really fall into your soul as soon as you fired it, right? Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 37. Purgatory Judge Heavy Armor. Basic defense increased by 1382. Save damage below 5% of your own HP. When actively released, summon the demonic flame to possess you, increasing your attack by 20%, speed by 30%, and damage reduction by 15% for 60 seconds, cooling down is 60 seconds. Judgment of Flame, targets killed during the duration of the demonic flame possession will have permanent blessings on the attributes of the infernal judge. Lu Xiaoqi. This equipment, this entry, this smell. I'm so familiar. Isn't this the same virtue as growth skills? Lu Xiaoqi rubbed his eyes to make sure he saw it correctly. I rethought the equipment entry word by word. That's right. How can you still get the same equipment as the growth skills? Xiao Yan saw his strange expression and thought he was in Versailles. He went up and slapped him on the head. Hurry up and put your equipment away. What, do you want to see my jealous look? Sister Yan. Lu Xiaoqi hesitated to speak, and hesitated to speak. Xiao Yan glared, if you have something to say it quickly, and if you have anything to say, let it go. How is the equipment divided? Lu Xiaoqi hesitated. Ordinary, fine, rare, legend, myth, divided by entries. In addition, there is an independent set. Xiao Yan glanced sideways at Lu Xiaoqi without thinking. What's wrong? You're the first in grade and you can't even remember this. How do I usually teach you? Lu Xiaoqi simply showed the attributes of the equipment. Take a look, Sister Yan. We all share hardships together, and Lu Xiaoqi still has great trust in Xiao Yan's character. As for Zhao Xueqing, although Lu Xiaoqi didn't know much about this school bell-level female classmate, after experiencing all the twists and turns, she had already determined her reliability. Xiao Yan was a little dumbfounded at first glance. Even with her experience, she had never seen such equipment. Zhao Xueqing on the side interjected, this is growth equipment, the rarest type among all levels. The look she looked at Lu Xiaoqi was also a bit complicated. How come this guy is so lucky? There is a certain chance that equipment with a grade of sophisticated or above will have an entry that enhances attributes by killing the target. This type of equipment is collectively referred to as growth equipment. Their entries can devour the killed to grow. They are very powerful, but they are hard to come by. Even a rare growth equipment is rarer than ordinary legendary equipment. Not to mention your legendary growth equipment. This is something that any force would be jealous of. Xiao Yan took a breath of air. She only knew about the existence of this type of equipment after hearing Zhao Xueqing's explanation. Put it away quickly and don't show it in front of others. Otherwise, not even the school can protect you. She said to Lu Xiaoqi seriously. Zhao Xueqing next to her also nodded, agreeing with Xiao Yan's point of view. Oh. Lu Xiaoqi put away the equipment and muttered dissatisfiedly, Why is it a secondary armor? If only the weapons were better. When Xiao Yan heard this, her face darkened and her fists clenched. Zhao Xueqing was also a little speechless, feeling that this student Lu was really big-hearted. It was like getting to know him again. In fact, there was a reason for Lu Xiaoqi's dissatisfaction. In his opinion, this thing was completely useless. This heavy armor is a full-body armor. Once equipped, every aspect is covered from head to toe. Some people said, this is not a good thing. One piece of equipment is worth a set. The attributes also have their own growth. It's like heavy armor that lasts forever, and it lasts forever. But who is Lu Xiaoqi? With his talents, will he be short of good equipment in the future? Obviously impossible. Then this set of heavy armor would be a bit of a hindrance. Because it occupies several important positions in one piece of equipment, head, body, and limbs. It would be difficult for ordinary adventurers to gather all the equipment, and even if they did, the overall attributes would be difficult to surpass the set of heavy armor. But Lu Xiaoqi is different. Judging from the current situation, he will probably have a steady stream of good equipment in the future. But equipped with this heavy armor, even if Lu Xiaoqi has good equipment in the future, there will be no place to put it. And because of its rarity, it's impossible to find a good price for it. There is a word called marketable but priceless. It is obviously worth a lot of money, but there is no way to resell it easily. It feels a little uncomfortable to keep it for yourself. If it were you, would you dislike it? Lu Xiaoqi, who had put away her equipment, was not done yet. He still has a treasure chest that he hasn't opened yet. The SSS and level evaluation gave him 3 opportunities to open the diamond treasure chest. He doesn't plan to open any equipment this time. It was the first time this happened, and I was a little nervous. Skill. The skills are not needed for the time being. Lu Xiaoqi's skills can be upgraded infinitely, and there is no problem of replacement. And all he needs are those specific skills. Lu Xiaoqi didn't believe that her luck could be so good, so her wish came true. So he set his sights on the resource treasure chest. Whether it's high-level recovery potions or training resources, or even various rare props, they are what he lacks most now. Lu Xiaoqi directly studied. 2 in a row. Special grade comprehensive recovery potion *99. After use, 30% of all status will be instantly restored and cooled down for 30 seconds. Xianming Essence. Practice after wearing it, the physical and mental growth rate will increase by 30%. Long-term wearing of soul quality slowly improves. Nice one. Lu Xiaoqi's eyes lit up. Not much to say about the recovery potion, the percentage is fully restored. Although there is a cooldown, this thing becomes more and more rare in the later stages. A reserve soldier may only be able to restore 100 points of physical strength, mental energy, etc., but if it is used by a strong Sun Yao warrior, it may restore hundreds of thousands of consumption. The second prop is even more important, it directly speeds up the practice. It can also improve the quality of your soul. As mentioned before, the reason why dungeon baptism is important is that it will also improve the quality of the adventurer's soul. The higher the quality of the soul, the more magical it will be even without the blessing of skills and talents. For example, supersensory abilities, control of objects with thoughts, aura, and coercion, etc. Lu Xiaoqi put it around her neck without hesitation. When Xianming Essence was pressed against Lu Xiaoqi's chest, traces of extremely cold Xianming's power were transmitted along the skin. Lu Xiaoqi shuddered and almost pulled it off and threw it out. But when he thought that wearing this thing for a long time could improve the quality of his soul, he gritted his teeth and endured it. Although it's not much, mosquito legs are also meat. The copy space collapsed after the final countdown, like a mirror world becoming fragmented as the mirror shattered. Lu Xiaoqi and others were standing in the middle of the road, not far away from the bus they had taken before. With the end of the copy, they also returned to the place where they entered the fog. Lu Zioki got in the car and found that some of her classmates had woken up, but their eyes showed a trace of confusion. Don't understand what happened. All the fog retracted into the original light gate of the dungeon. The light gate of that dungeon was different from the light gate used in the adventurer assessment. It is a colorful aperture with a black hole in the middle, as if even the light has been sucked in. Xiao Yan was communicating with people from the relevant departments who rushed over after noticing the movement. Zhao Xueqing sat down next to Lu Zioqi. You are number 1 on the national list, right? 09527. Although it was a guess, the smart and witty Zhao Xueqing once again confirmed the answer. Ahem. Lu Zioqi covered her mouth with her hand and pretended to cough, then whispered into Zhao Xueqing's ear, Low-key, low-key. Zhao Xueqing wrinkled her cute nose, and then said seriously, I will catch up with you soon. On the other side, the two teams that had just cleared the level bumped into each other. Isn't it your first pass? Captain Li was a little confused, but he came out one step ahead of Zhao Zongziu. Are you here to show off? Captain Li. Didn't you clear the level first? Zhao Kongziu said through gritted teeth as his veins popped out. No, we just came out too. It's not you and it's not our section. Could it be that there is a third team in there? As soon as these words came out, both of them were stunned and looked at each other. It seems, there really is. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 38. So many things happened today, everyone has worked hard. In order to celebrate that everyone has successfully passed the exam, the school has decided to give everyone a 2-day holiday to take a good rest and welcome a new life as an adventurer. The belated bus slowly stopped at the school gate. Xiao Yan stood on the bus and announced the holiday with a wave of her hand. The scene was also immersed in. How come I'm done with my baptism? There are a lot of extra materials in the package. What happened? When the students who were confused like this heard these words, they immediately put all the questions in their minds behind and cheered heartily. Only Lu Zioqi curled her lips. If you delay 2 days of rest to take the assessment, you will be given 2 days of leave to make up for it later. It also made everyone burst into tears of gratitude. It would be a pity not to start a company. You know how to squeeze. After the class teacher explained something, he announced the disbandment and the students left one after another. Zhao Xueqing glanced at Lu Zioqi, said nothing, and quietly got into a luxury car. Xiao Yan walked up to Lu Zioqi and whispered, Come to the playground to find me during self-study time tonight. After saying that, she turned and left in a big stride. High schools in this world also have evening classes, but they are no longer held every night. It is only available on weekends, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you can freely arrange other times for practicing and other activities. Xiao Yan still has a lot to do today. Students on vacation will return to school, take assessments, and report to the school on a series of follow-up matters. Just thinking about how to help Lu Zioqi hide his abilities made her head buzz. My brain is aching. Lu Zioqi also looked puzzled. What's going on? We were told to have a holiday, but you still want me to go back to school at night? Tuition. Looking at Xiao Yan's retreating back, Lu Zioqi scratched his head, puzzled. Lu Zioqi looked around outside and did not see Chen Haoran coming to greet his triumphant return. He was not surprised either. This guy is probably at home scratching his head over the homework left by the teacher. Without Lu Zioqi to learn from him, his scalp would probably be numb by now. Lu Zioqi's current focus is not on Chen Haoran. He is eager to return home now and just wants to go back to see how his sister is doing. Although it's half a day later than originally scheduled, it shouldn't be a big deal, right? Naturally, nothing happened. However, Lu Wanyi, who cooked a table of dishes without waiting for her brother to come back for lunch, naturally had to lecture Lu Zioqi for a while. Faced with her sister's aggressive questioning, Luzioki could only shrink her neck and pretend to be a quail, begging for mercy in a low voice, and surrounded her sister for a while to make fun of her, trying to get away with being cute. Lu Wanyi was not really angry about this, but she felt a little uneasy. Although she knew that her brother was already an adult, how could she avoid worrying about him? After being teased by Luzioki for a while, the emotions accumulated in his heart were dissipated. Luzioki looked at Lu Wanyi, who was smiling again, and felt relieved. With my sister's current condition, until a complete cure for her is found, we can only let her live every day without worries and happily. Once your emotions are affected, your physical condition is likely to plummet. It's a pity that Luzioki's family's current financial situation makes it impossible to do even a comprehensive and detailed examination, so it's still not clear where Lu Wanyi's problem lies. The only good thing is that it's not cancer. A penny can stump a hero. Snort. It's all those quack doctors. It must be said that it is difficult to treat this situation with current technology, and we can only start with unconventional means. As for what are unconventional means? That must be related to adventurers. Whether or not talent is activated is a very important watershed. People with talents turned on can carry, use equipment, props, and release skills. But people who have not activated their talents cannot do this. There is no way to enjoy the recovery and gain effects brought by skills and props. But in terms of the damage caused to him by skills and props, it has not been reduced at all. So people often say that people with talent and people without talent are two different worlds. This is also the reason why Luzioki wanted to awaken even though she knew she had a great talent. Because Lu Wanyi dropped out of school at an early age and took on the heavy responsibility of supporting her family, she lost the opportunity to awaken her talent. General adventurers' healing skills or ordinary recovery items are ineffective against her. You must be a Sun Yao level boss, someone who understands the relevant rules, in order to break this boundary and be able to treat ordinary people. The same goes for props, which must be of rules level to be effective on ordinary people. To obtain such props, or to invite people of this level to take action, is no longer something that can be done with money. In other words, it is impossible for ordinary people to do it. Only by becoming an adventurer can you seize that glimmer of hope. This is also what Luzioki insists on. Time passed quickly, and the afternoon flew by in a blink of an eye. Luzioki didn't go anywhere and stayed at home with her sister and Xian. Anyway, the students who passed the adventurer assessment will have a holiday tomorrow and the next 2 days, so he still has plenty of time to sort out his harvest. It wouldn't be too late to go to the Adventurers Guild tomorrow to register information, and then package and sell the materials you don't use. After dinner, Luzioki said goodbye to Lu Wanyi with her school bag in hand. By this time, he was going to go to school. After going out, Luzioki found a buffet and had a big meal. She ate enough for 5 big eaters by herself. After the baptism, his strength increased explosively, but at the same time, his appetite also increased exponentially. Because he doesn't behave well at home, he indulges a lot outside. When Luzioki walked out of the restaurant, stroking her belly, he glanced at the boss's expression. Obviously, he has been on the boss's blacklist. After all, the sign hung by Boss Ren at the door clearly stated, "Small business, respected adventurers please do not enter." But what does the adventurer have to do with my reserves? I haven't registered yet. Just and confident.jpg. In this regard, he could only sigh. As his strength increased, ordinary food had indeed become less and less useful to him. His current strength is still at the star level. When he reaches the later moonlight level or sunrise level, eating these foods will not even increase the energy he consumes. But at that time, there will naturally be specially processed supplies provided to them. In addition, if they have not experienced high-intensity combat, These strong men can directly interact with the power of heaven and earth to make up for their consumption, and there is no need to stare at ordinary people. Food sucks. Eating is just a way for them to enjoy life. By the time Luzioki arrived at the playground, it was already after 9 o'clock in the evening. There was no one in the empty playground, and all the students who were not on vacation were attending self-study classes. "Come up," Xiao Yan's voice came from the top of the audience stage. Luzioki came to her side along the corridor. He smelled the smell of wine from a distance and was surprised. Xiao Yan is famous for being a strict self-discipline, and she doesn't smoke or drink at all. Not to mention it's still work time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 39. Xiao Yan was wearing loose casual clothes, with one foot raised high on the audience chair in the front row. There were several boxes of wine under her feet, and a lot of finished cans were thrown beside her. Her pretty cheeks were dyed with a touch of delicacy, her eyes were slightly narrowed, and her eyebrows that were usually raised high and seemed a bit sharp were softened. At this moment, she was lazy and charming, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her body. Luzioki looked at this unique Xiao Yan and suddenly felt a little at a loss. "Why are you standing there in a daze? Sit down." Xiao Yan patted the seat next to her and shouted to Luzioki. The tone was still the same. Luzioki breathed a sigh of relief and sat next to her numbly. Unlike before, he no longer used his peripheral vision to appreciate Xiao Yan's figure. Instead, he had a serious face and looked straight ahead, as if there was some eye-catching scene in the void. After breaking through to the Starlight Realm, Luzioki's soul power simply improved by leaps and bounds. At this level of strength, he can clearly see the eyes of others. And Xiao Yan's strength has reached the Yuehui level, so how can she not notice other people's prying eyes? Therefore, Xiao Yan was fully aware of Luzioki's little moves before. "It's just that I didn't argue with him." Could it be that Xiao Yan could still say to all those who secretly glanced at her, "Don't look, I know it all. Those who do not know are not guilty." But now Luzioki already knows. Faced with the pressure from the head teacher, how could he dare to act so arrogantly? Xiao Yan looked at him sideways. "What? I've never seen your sister Yan drink." Xiao Yan would not call herself Sister Yan in front of Luzioki before. This is the first time. It also shows that she is indeed in a good mood now. "I've never seen Kushi," Luzioki muttered, turning over his hand and taking out the sheathed dagger in the package. "Sister Yan, this is the sword you lent me before. Now it has returned to its original owner." Luzioki returned the sword. He is not a shameless person after all. A set-level weapon with such powerful attributes, this is undoubtedly the adventurer's second life. No matter how reluctant he is to part with it, no matter how rare it is, he still has to give it back to others. This is a matter of principle. Between friends, you can borrow a lighter or something like that, and it doesn't matter if you don't return it. But no matter how good the relationship is, you can't ask someone to lend you an arm or a leg and then not return it, right? Luzioki looked in a daze as she watched Xiao Yan holding the dagger and caressing it carefully. The words that he originally planned to offer to exchange equipment with Xiao Yan for daggers reached his lips and he swallowed it back. He is not a man without eyesight. This dagger obviously has a story for Xiao Yan. A gentleman does not take away what others like. Let's go to the auction house tomorrow to see if there are any suitable weapons. If it really doesn't work, it's not like the toy sword can't do it. There is no doubt that a suitable weapon can improve combat power, especially for people like Luzioki whose skills specify weapons. He began to think of ways to obtain other weapons. "This dagger was once a gift I prepared for my brother." Is Xiao Yan's voice a little low? She stared at the dagger, as if she was talking or mumbling to herself. My younger brother is 6 years younger than me. He is not very talented and only has a white level. But my temper is as stubborn as yours, so be strong. Work hard and work hard. Perhaps I was too dazzling at that time. I could always easily achieve goals that ordinary people could only achieve with all their strength. My parents are proud of me, and they constantly instill in my younger brother the idea of learning from me. Xiao Yan took a sip of wine and fell into reminiscing about the past. But no matter how hard my brother tries, he can't catch up with me. Every time I feel sorry for him, he always shakes his head and says with a smile, "Don't be tired. I want to become an outstanding adventurer like my sister." So I made an agreement with him. If he successfully passes the test and becomes an adventurer, I will give him this dagger. At this point in the story, the ending is self-evident. Lu Xiaoqi wanted to comfort Xiao Yan, but before she could speak, Xiao Yan stuffed a bottle of Ken into Lu Xiaoqi's hand. "Let's drink together." Lu Xiaoqi did not refuse, pulled the tab away and touched Xiao Yan. "Later, I came here and became a teacher and a head teacher." Xiao Yan drank the Ken in one breath, and a lot of wine flowed from the corners of her mouth, down her slender neck, and wet her clothes. She threw away the empty can, then leaned over and picked up another can from the ground. "Actually, my purpose was very simple at the beginning. Just to prevent countless students like my brother from making the same mistakes. If you don't have outstanding talent, no matter how hard you work, your future achievements will be limited." She said with a trace of sadness in her eyes, "This is the fate of adventurers. It was doomed from the beginning." Lu Xiaoqi was silent. Indeed, if his great talent is not that of Feng Ling Yueying, but the same as that unlucky guy recorded in history, he probably won't be any better than Xiao Yan's brother. Even if you are lucky enough to pass the adventurer test, the road in the future is destined to become narrower and narrower. There is only one skill bar, the family is poor, and the talent is still inferior. Just thinking about it is despairing. Maybe thinking about it from this perspective, Xiao Yan was right to prevent him from becoming an adventurer. But you are different. Xiao Yan changed her tone and looked at Lu Xiaoqi with bright eyes. "Although, I still haven't figured out how you did all this. But it doesn't matter anymore. You made me realize my mistake. Maybe fate is not so unfair to adventurers. Even if you have no talent and are inferior, you can still make your way into the world." Lu Xiaoqi, you may be really drunk when you say this. I shouldn't feel sorry for myself or others. You shouldn't blame everything on talent. Xiao Yan's face flushed. "I have decided that I will resign after you graduate this year. Continue my journey as an adventurer. I want to take my brother's place and experience the scenery of the adventurers further away." Lu Xiaoqi looked confused. "What's going on? I resigned my head teacher for no apparent reason? But I haven't done anything yet." Before he could react, Xiao Yan stuffed the dagger into his arms again. "Thank you anyway. Maybe if it weren't for you, it would be hard for me to figure it out in my life. As a token of my gratitude, I will give you this sword." Lu Xiaoqi originally wanted to persuade Xiao Yan to stop her from making a decision that she would regret based on impulse. After all, people's bodies are different. What Lu Xiaoqi can do does not mean that others can do it. But when the dagger was in his arms, he suddenly smiled. "Ah, yes, yes, everything Sister Yan said is right. My brother is carrying out his last wish, so why should I interfere?" Xiao Yan looked at the beaming Lu Xiaoqi, and in a daze, his figure overlapped with that of her cheerful brother. "Sister, I am an adventurer now. I can fight with you." Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 40. The two sat in the school auditorium and chatted for a long time. As the head teacher and sister, Xiao Yan carefully gave Lu Xiaoqi many details. "Tell him not to rush to download the copy. He has just experienced the baptism of the dungeon, so he should digest his gains first, find suitable teammates, and then carry out the dungeon strategy. This time can even be postponed until after he is admitted to the academy. The university for ordinary people and the university for adventurers are naturally different. Before entering college, everyone is on the same starting line, learning the same knowledge and doing the same homework. At the university level, ordinary people can only go to ordinary schools and study ordinary people's majors. What about finance, electronic technology, construction engineering, etc.? The Adventurer Academy specializes in dungeon strategies, and will have more practical teaching. This actual battle is no longer the petty fight in high school. Instead, under the leadership of the teacher, the copy is being practiced. In the process, they will gradually find their own path. Know what type of adventurer you are suitable for, and then learn and master the corresponding abilities. Finally, according to your own abilities, find a suitable team, cooperate with the training, complement each other's abilities, increase the degree of tacit understanding, and form an adventure team. At this point, we enter the real independent dungeon link. Before that, rashly heading to the dungeon guide was a sign of irresponsibility for one's own life. Luzaoki also knew how lucky it was to pass that difficult level dungeon before. But after listening to Xiaoyan's detailed description, I realized that there are still so many twists and turns. Not all copies are completed by rushing in and slashing for a while. There are many dungeons that not only have traps, but also mazes, as well as reasoning and detection links. Some monsters are good at hiding or escaping, and some monsters can only be killed with specific attacks. If there are no professional personnel responsible for collecting the corresponding intelligence and breaking through the levels, it is very likely that you will not even see the face of the monster. Even if you do, you will not be able to do anything about it. Luzaoki is a bit confused. He has special talents and abilities and is not suitable for teaming up with others. But according to Xiaoyan's introduction, even if he now has 12 skill columns, he may not be able to learn all the skills needed for a complete team. It seems that it is imperative to form your own team. At the end of the chat, Xiaoyan was obviously a little confused. She leaned on Luzaoki's shoulder, hugged Luzaoki's neck and talked nonsense. Luzaoki was also a little helpless. Good guy, out of 3 boxes of wine, he only drank 2 bottles, and Xiaoyan was so dazzled by the rest. Obviously, Luzaoki's performance since the adventurer assessment has indeed broken the long-standing boulder in Xiaoyan's heart. Although he didn't do it intentionally. What would you do if a drunken beauty leaned next to you? Luzaoki chooses salad. He carried the class teacher back to her dormitory in a princess hug. During this process, he carefully avoided the frequently traveled roads and took a back path to ensure that no one would notice. Otherwise it would be on the campus news the next day. Seeing Xiaoyan's dishonest sleeping posture lying on her big pink bed, Luzaoki stared hard, closed the door and left. As if she heard the door closing, Xiaoyan's eyelids trembled, and she turned over and continued to sleep. The so-called Adventurers Guild. It is a huge collective formed by the spontaneous organization of adventurers. The initial purpose was to help each other and try to avoid the negative impact of the fog dungeon on the world. Since its development, it has become a neutral organization all over the world. Adventurers can go to the guild to register, exchange the information they need, or sell materials, props, equipment, etc. You can post messages in the union to find teammates or the props you need. You can also accept tasks delegated by the trade union as a third-party guarantee. The Adventure Group was formed here at the Adventurers Guild, and its main job was to collect materials from designated dungeons as entrusted by the entrusting party. Don't underestimate the materials dropped by these copies. Whether you are refining potions, strengthening equipment, or building props based on design drawings, you are inseparable from all kinds of strange materials, some of which are even hard to find. Basically every second tier and above city will have a branch of the Adventure Guild. Even in larger cities, there will be a branch in the four directions of southeast, northwest, and northwest. For example, now, Lu Zhaoqi is standing at the gate of the Adventurers Guild in Zikan District, Rongcheng. Early this morning, he said goodbye to Lu Wanyi and went out to school. I turned around and got on the bus. It took me more than an hour to get here. Pushing open the door and going in, a smiling young lady came face to face. What kind of business do you handle, sir? Register the adventurer information and sell some materials. Lu Zhaoqi replied that he had sorted out the things he needed to sell before coming. Okay, please come with me here to go through the registration formalities. The registration process is very simple. Just verify your adventurer qualifications, then fill out the form and simply test your strength. Lu Zhaoqi reported a long list of adventurer certification numbers that were given to him after passing the adventurer assessment, plus his real name information, and easily passed the verification. The table adjustment process is a bit complicated. In addition to the common registration contact information and home address, it also involves many aspects, including the positioning of the adventurer, the adventure group to which he belongs, and relevant skill certifications. As a newbie, Lu Zhaoqi showed his eagerness to learn and asked questions when he didn't understand. The young lady didn't show any impatient expression and explained to him with a smile. In the end, Lu Zhaoqi still ignored most of the optional options, only filled in a few required fields, and completed the second step. Of course, strength certification will not be as simple and crude as asking you to perform a few sets of boxing combinations in the Adventurers Guild, or to lift weights or use a boxing ergometer. In fact, the test method is similar to the test method used by Lu Zhaoqi when he was studying. It is a sophisticated device, somewhat similar to the equipment used to perform CT placed vertically. Standing on it and scanning it will display the current physical strength, physical strength, and mental values. It's just more accurate than the school's equipment, which can only display values in hundreds. The data here can be accurate to single digits. These data can basically reflect the level of a person's strength. There isn't too much pretending to be a compliment. After all, the person's quality is there, and there's nothing to look down on Lu Zhaoqi just because she dresses plainly. Drop. As the scanning light moves from top to bottom, the indicator light below emits a beep and turns green. Okay, Mr. Lu, you can come down from above. The staff handed Lu Zhaoqi a piece of A4 paper with the Adventurers Guild's certification of his strength written on it, and it was also stamped with the official seal. Certifier, Lu Zhaoqi. Physical strength, 381. Mental strength, 571. Maximum physical strength, 3,965. Mental upper limit, 2031. Comprehensive evaluation, midterm starlight.